adolescent, adulthood, and elderhood. Welcome to Beyondhood, where we go beyond elderhood, one chat at a time.
Happy New Year! Happy 2024, everyone! Beyondhood has launched a new service in 2024, storytelling. Do you want to record your parents or your grandparents' life story in their own voice? Contact me and see how I can help you. My contact info is in the show notes. Hello, everyone. This is episode 3. So today I have the honor to have Edwina, Eddie, aka the IronGran, on our podcast. I met Eddie at the Healthy Aging Conference when we both took a break on the balcony to get some fresh air. Eddie has a very positive energy that kind of attracted me to her and a lovely smile. So we made eye contact and I went up and started a conversation by, "I'm really jealous of your brownie." That's how we met. So Eddie, welcome to the Beyondhood podcast. First of all, could you share with us what's your full name, where are you from, and how old are you, please?
I'm Edwina Pauline Brocklesby, and I grew up in Bristol as a child, and I'm now 80 years old.
The audience will find out soon when I post picture that Eddie doesn't look 80 at all. Speaking of where you're from, where did you grow up and what were your childhood and adolescence like?
I had a very happy childhood. I grew up in Bristol until I was 15 when my father and mother moved up to London. I had a background that was quite influential for me in that my father was working for the National Association of Boys Clubs. He created Outward Bound for youngsters, and he was also the chair of the Juvenile Magistrates Court in Bristol. So
I looked at what Magistrate Court is from The Life in the UK, a guide from New Resident official book. In England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, most minor criminal cases are dealt with in a magistrate court. And magistrate, they are members of the local community.
In Bristol, so I guess quite a level of social community awareness as a young child.
How about your mom?
My mum grew up, so I have a fairly left-wing, politically aware father. And my mum, of course, was Georgina Landimar's daughter. Georgina Landimar was Churchill's cook, so a fairly strong conservative background.
How did your parents meet together?
They met in Nottinghamshire, and I won't forget the occasion when Lady Churchill wanted to come to our home once we'd moved up to London, and the whole room was plastered "Vote Labour" because my father was standing for the local Labour Party.
Oh, wow.
And my grandmother thought she probably ought to put Lady Churchill off for a week or so.
You mentioned about your grandma was Mr. Churchill's cook. How did your grandma become Mr. Churchill's cook?
I think what happened was that my grandmother became a cook. She clearly had a relationship with and then married my grandfather, who was 20, if not 30 years older than her. She was the scullery maid in the kitchen where they were working. She then learnt to become a cook progressively, and I think did occasional sessions down in Chartwell for Lady Churchill. And then Lady Churchill records in her diary the day that my grandmother came in and offered her services to be their cook. And so Lady Churchill was saying how fantastic. So that's on Lady Churchill's stuff.
And how was your relationship with your grandma? Or have you ever met Mr. Churchill himself?
Yes, I mean, she worked for him during the war and then after the war for quite a while, and a lovely video with Joan Bakewell interviewing her, I think, gives that story. Yes, I got on very well with my grandmother. I have to say I was never that good a cook, and she would stand over me occasionally critically, but She was a very interesting person and a very warm, caring grandmother. She used to come down to Bristol fairly often to visit us, and I used to go up to London as a child and, did go to number 10 Downing Street and Hyde Park Gate, particularly when they weren't living in then Downing Street. The other link was my grandfather, his second wife was Hannah Collins, who is Joan Collins's aunt.
Oh, wow.
I look it up. Joan Collins is an English actress from Paddington, London. She's most famous for playing the role Alex Carrington Corby in the soap opera Dynasty from 1981 to 1989. In 1997, Collins was appointed an officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, for her service to drama.
You did come from a very famous, influential family.
So Joan Collins I saw here at the Rose Theatre about a month or two ago when her husband Percy and she came down, and they did a couple of talks really, which was so inspirational. But she mentioned her Aunt Hannah. So it was lovely to meet her.
Oh, wow. Did your grandma cook you what she cooked for Mr. Churchill?
She certainly cooked for us. I don't know that we'd have had the availability with rationing down in Bristol of the sort of food that she had access to through Churchill, which was the local sort of farming area. And I think she had access then cooking for him for the sorts of food that wasn't available on rationing. So yes, we moved up to London. I went to a local Catholic school down in Bristol, and I've still got many friends from Lara Trait in a WhatsApp group, and actually we met recently, so great.
How did you keep that for so long, the relationship?
It hasn't been going that long, but somebody got it going again. Isn't that brilliant? So I went down to Keynsham actually and met some of them last year, which was lovely. And we've got a WhatsApp group now from Lara Trait.
Oh, wow. Technology does help to connect back people.
Oh, yes, I think it's really important. And and I think now, various networks that I've got, the WhatsApp groups are invaluable really to stay in touch with your friends.
What were you as a child and as a teenager like, and what were your hobbies? Tell us more about you when you were younger as a teenager and a kid.
I suppose certainly I never remember doing much physical activity. I did play netball quite a lot and loved that at school. No other real recollections apart from being really happy at school, but physical activity didn't play a strong part in my childhood.
Wow. So what happened later in your life is something that you didn't see of yourself.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I didn't do anything really until I was 50.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a really lovely childhood. I understand that you chose social work as your career before you start Silverfit. Can you share with us why did you choose social work and what kind of social work did you focus on?
I went to university and did economics and psychology. I started off with about 6 days of honours maths and decided that wasn't for me. But I actually loved doing economics there. I met my husband in the civil engineering department when we were both at university. Finished university, and Nottingham then had a very pioneering computer in the block that I was studying in, and I think I'd learnt a little bit about programming from computing, so I talked to a careers advisor there who certainly thought I should be going in that direction.
Oh, wow.
But I think much more influential for me was my father and his background and, working with juvenile delinquents, creating outward bounds to reduce the crime rate of juveniles then. So I think, yes, it was social work without any doubt for me.
So what year was that? So you were going to go into computer, but your heart was kind of telling you, you're more into social work.
I went straight into social work in 1963, actually starting in the Walworth Road, ironically, where we're now working in Silverfit for a year or so, then went up to Northamptonshire and moved around the country when my husband's job changed too.
In all this year, you as a social worker, what was the high? And were there any very low moment that makes you, I want to quit social work?
Don't think I ever felt I wanted to quit. I always found that you were helping youngsters who very often hadn't had the best of backgrounds. I remember really understanding for the first time the effect on the unborn baby of a mum having alcohol in pregnancy, and really broadcasting that to try and prevent that, because the damage of fetal alcohol is significant for the unborn baby. So you wanted mums to know the risk of drinking alcohol even in the first 2 or 3 months of pregnancy. I also ran a couple of adoption agencies, and again linked with my background of working for the courts with children who were at risk. And the 2 adoption agencies, one was a Catholic one and one was specialising in placing children with disability for adoption, so all fostering. And my own PhD is actually in that area too. I did a lot of research on a lot of kids who had been adopted and had maintained some link, or their adopted parents had maintained a link with the birth parents.
How come your focus and your passion is on young kids? Is there a particular reason that you like to do adoption?
My background, and that's where I felt I could make the greatest difference. And when I was running Parents for Children, the adoption agency, I then created the idea for funding of a marathon going down the Lee Valley. So it started up near Ware, came right the way down the Lee Valley to what became the Olympic Park. So we called it 5 to Go was the first marathon, and got down to 1 to go, and then it was the London Olympics, which I just thought was fantastic, and watched it being created really. So at the end, had a year off really enjoying the Olympics, and then started to look with some friends about where we could make the greatest difference, and felt it would be to promote healthier aging. So that was the beginning of Silverfit.
Yes, we will get onto Silverfit in a little bit. At this point, when you were a social worker, we said that you met your husband in university. Would you mind to share with us, what was your relationship like? How many kids did you guys have? And I know that's a life-changing event happened when you were in your 50s. Could you share that story with us, and how did that have changed your life?
I think I would say we were very happily married for many, many years. And he died in 1996 after a very short period of 3 months when he knew that he had terminal cancer. You sort of talk to him and share with him that experience, knowing that I was the lucky one. I was going to make the most of my life and had that opportunity to do so. Still a strong part of my life now. And you'll see the pictures in my home that reflect some of those experiences.
I watched the documentary that you shared with me. You mentioned you're the lucky one. And when I watch it, I really feel that energy, because it's so easier said than done. Because at that moment, when you were with someone that you spent your whole life with, and that moment came so early, how did you deal with that grief? And when you were talking, what stood out to you the most? That's something you still remember now. Because I recently went through a grieving period. It really got to me when I saw it happening. So how did you deal with that?
I think I was very fortunate. I did go to a couple of counselling sessions, but I also had a small group of friends in the village where we lived in Nottinghamshire, because my husband had been head of highways and planning when he died. And those small group of friends that we used to go out for a jog with proved absolutely critical for me. That we could go out, we could have fun still and share our experiences, even when we were jogging up a hill that I would tend to be the last one and they'd have to wait for me at the top. Beginnings for me, recognising the importance of physical activity in terms of, mental health.
Then how did you start running? You mentioned when you were a kid or teenager, or even until you were adult, you were focusing on social work. So how did you get onto running, and when did that happen?
I was also focusing on bringing up 3 children as well as full-time social work.
Yeah.
So not without a few other lack of space, really. No, that happened when I went up to watch a friend not long before my husband died, actually, and he was doing the marathon around Nottingham University area, and it was quite inspirational. And I came back to my husband and said, you know, I'd love to do a half marathon, and he said, you couldn't even go 2 miles into Northampton. And I think it was that challenge without any doubt at all. So I spent the next 3 months with a few friends in that area, you know, jogging, walking, and training really to do that first half marathon, which was the beginning.
Do you remember that moment when you first started running? How did you feel, or what was your goal back then?
I think it's the benefits of being sociable and perhaps not running fast enough that you can't talk. But it is the friendships, it's the community, and it's getting out in the fresh air. I think, you know, that's absolutely vital for me, and still is, you know, whether it's raining or sunshine, it's getting outside.
You started to run, and then how did you decide to do your first marathon when you were 53, and then your first triathlon when you were 58? So how did you go from running, you know, trying to run, to all the way to the marathon and triathlon?
I think I had very good advice at one point that I don't have an anterior cruciate ligament in either knee. And I knew that maybe my knees, and I was told this by a physio too, you know, my knees were not going to stand up to marathon running forever. I would be better to focus a little bit more on swimming, which I could only swim one width of a swimming pool, and cycling. And I think probably it's the cycling that stood me in the best sense. You know, I cycle now a lot on my indoor bike, as well as getting out into the fresh air and cycling too. So I do think it was the benefit for the whole body of triathlon, perhaps for me, rather than just running.
I see. When you did race across America and your first Ironman in Lanzarote, when you were 64 and 65, for people who don't know, Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim in open water, followed by an 112 miles bike ride, then a full marathon. Do you know how to swim or bike, or do you have to learn in order to do Ironman?
I certainly had to learn to swim. You know, I could only do a width of swimming, and that would be breaststroke, whereas I think the more economically viable swim is probably doing the crawl. So I had to do that and learn to swim outdoors in outdoor pools, and then ultimately, you know, opportunities to swim in the sea, particularly Lanzarote. I've been a long-standing member of Serpentine Running Club, and that too has been an absolutely vital friendship network for me. In London, but we used once a year go to Lanzarote for a sort of club training event, but also having big time fun.
When you were going through your first Ironman, how did you push through the physical, because you did mention you have some injury, and most importantly, your mental barrier? What did you tell yourself when you start or in the middle of it? How do you keep yourself going?
I think it's the variety of activities that lessen, if you like, the sort of, you know, doing 100-mile walking or jogging. It is the variety, and I think it's also the networks when you're actually doing it too. You know, I've never, I don't think, not chatted on the run at the end with other competitors. So I'm probably not as fast as I could be.
Did everyone support you when you say you are going to do your first Ironman when you were 65? Did everyone support you? And if not, how do you deal with the no-goer?
No, I think people are very supportive now of an older population. You know, you would always get mentioned your age as you're on the broadcast systems. People are obviously recognising that it's great to get our ageing population just that bit more active.
What was the biggest motivation for you to finish it?
I think it's having signed up, it actually is to finish. And I would certainly say that of London Marathon that I've done several times. I mean, yes, it's partly the fun, but, you know, without any doubt, as you're getting tireder and tireder, it is finishing.
You started a new passion when you were around 53 or 4 and did it so magnificently, going to do race across America and Ironman. And you also started Silverfit when you were 69. Can you tell us more about Silverfit and what made you start?
Silverfit was really part of the London 2012 Olympic legacy. It was healthier aging, it was promoting that, it was linking with the NHS to, with their social prescribing, for instance, to get people more active and to have fun. I think that's so crucial. It is about the social element too. So we set up different sorts of activity sessions and whether it was Nordic walking, which is quite good for the balance and the core stability, or having fun doing Bollywood fitness or silver cheerleading, Pilates, a range of activities in different venues. But it is crucially about the social element, and we know that what keeps people coming to Silverfit sessions is the social element. People getting out, especially post-lockdown, getting out, and people who were isolated and living alone. It's absolutely great to see them having fun, getting more active and loving the cheerleading Bollywood fitness.
I know, cheerleading. So how do you come up with silver cheerleading? That's such a cool concept and fun.
Yes, we need to get back to doing that one again because our manager, who was the London cheerleaders, moved. So I think we aren't doing it at the moment, but we must get back to doing it because you're absolutely right, it is fun. And just the carrying of the pom-poms is fun.
You mentioned the word fun a few times. I did some research, and one of the things you said in one of your podcasts I really agree is that we shouldn't just say sport, because sport make people feel competitive, which was what you did. You compete, which was a great thing. But why would you say we need to encourage older people to do physical activity instead of go do some sport? Why did you come up with that, and why is it important for you and for Silverfit?
I think the word sport can be a disincentive. I think older people will be, if they've not been that physically active, will be threatened by the word sport. So I think it's about, as I've said, I'm talking at conferences, I'm sometimes the only person or the first person to talk about and use the word fun. But I think it is so crucial to get our healthier aging population.
What kind of social do they usually do?
Oh, we have what we call a social sandwich. People meet up socially, take the register and fill in the right forms, etc. And then almost always have refreshments before and always after the session so that people can stay and socialise and get to know each other a bit better.
One of the things that really stood out to me is that you started this company in your elderhood, later in your life. And sometimes when I talk to my friend, they're like, oh, I'm already 30 something, 40 something. It's too late to change another job. I just want to, be stable. What would you say to them? What was the biggest obstacle that you have to overcome when you started Silverfit?
I don't think I found any obstacles. And I think it is quite important that I've had the opportunity to get to 80, so well past the normal retirement age, but I love doing it. I love the contacts I meet. I even quite enjoy some of the statistical evidence of the difference that we're making for people.
So then that's come to a really interesting question that I want to ask. Will you ever think about retiring?
I can't think why I should retire. Yes, I will retire from doing some of the administration and organisational part of Silverfit, but not from going for the odd session and meeting up with people. I hope I'm going to be able to do that. And the fact that we do cope and do have great members who have got the level of physical disability is really inspirational.
Can you share a story, one of the member, what happened to he or she before and then after she joined Silverfit? What's the biggest change you have seen?
I think that's true of a lot of our members, and we are just gathering testimonials at the moment, updated ones. I think to see somebody come and sort of sit down at the side and watch hesitantly at the beginning and then go a month later and find that there they are, actually maybe sitting down but still participating in the Bollywood fitness with the scarves and the equipment that the instructors bring along with them. Or people who can go Nordic walking with the poles that they have on either side, that I think does restrict their risk of falling over.
I know that during this journey of you running, competing, you have a few injuries, including a burst appendix and a hip replacement. Could you share with us, how do you overcome this barrier, and does it have an impact on you, and how do you get back on the road?
I think probably a better example is a fairly recent fracture of my wrist. And apparently I tripped up. I was doing a park run and I tripped up on the root of a tree on the ground. And I fell over, and I did what the majority of older people do, put one hand out to protect yourself as you fall. But that, of course, leads to the most common injury, I understand, for older people turning up at A&E is fractured wrists. So yes, I had my arm in a plaster cast for 6 weeks, something like that. But what was lovely was the number of, at the NHS hospital, a number of staff who were coming in to meet me because they'd heard about this 80-year-old woman who'd fallen over but doing park run.
Out of all the Ironman that you have participated, you participate in 10 and complete the 6. Which one was the toughest, and which one was your favorite race?
I think Lanzarote is probably the favourite one. It's an area that I knew really well. I loved it. The final one I did there, I didn't make the cut-off time for the cycle. So just about to do the hardest bit of that Ironman, I was cut off. But even that was fun. You end up in a small bus with other people that have failed to complete it, and all having a joke and a laugh and getting down to the finish. So but that was my probably most frustrating.
I see. When did you get the nickname of IronGran, and how do you think of it?
I think that was the suggestion of my friend Josie Perry, a sports psychologist, that suddenly she came up with that title, and I thought it was brilliant.
And you enjoy being called that?
Oh.
We're stepping into beyondhood, which is what goes beyond adulthood. We're living a lot longer now, but I generally don't see that many older adults like you still working for your passion and exercise as much. What do you attribute to having that attitude and living and staying as active as you are?
I think it's got to be a genetic factor, having grandparents, who were 90-something. That helps, although both my parents died rather younger than that. I think it's about enjoying life, and what helps you to enjoy life is the communities that you're part of because of the physical activity. So I think that's the primary one, and that's where I've talked about Serpentine 26.2 running club here in Surbiton. That's the social life.
How about in terms of spirit? Because from how I met you, you're always smiling. You have that aura around you that you are nice and wanting to share. And you have won a medal, which is the honor list for service to the health and well-being of all the people. So you have accomplished so much, but you still have that humbleness in you. And how do you keep that good spirit?
Enjoying life, but it's also, I am the lucky one. And as I look round at pictures of my husband, I'm constantly reminded, make the most of your life. And I'm sort of reflecting now, I'm 80, A lot of people are dying. You're reading in the news at the age of 80 and thinking, let's make the most of what years I've got left.
Yeah. How about your diet, or is there anything specific you do to keep yourself moving and in good health and spirit?
I think I am very healthy on balance, apart from the odd injury. I've had cod liver oil since I was a child, and I've had it every day ever since.
Okay.
So I think, yes, I do take a couple of vitamin tablets in the morning. I always have breakfast. An egg a day and an apple a day is certain. And then just recently reading more about tomatoes and, Inside Health, covering that with Michael Mosley. Really very relevant. So I've taken to cooking tomatoes more than I ever did in the past.
Is tomatoes very good for you?
Yes, apparently. I hadn't appreciated that, but we're even talking good for your brain. So.
Oh, wow. Well, I actually love tomatoes just by nature. I love them. How about what usually do you drink?
Oh, that's another issue, how much alcohol one has. I'm constantly sort of resolving to minimise the amount of alcohol. But again, that does link, doesn't it, with the social opportunities and meeting up with friends and having a drink or two.
Yeah. Through our conversation, you mentioned quite a few about having the social network. At this stage of your life, how do you maintain your friendship, or what are some of the most important relationships? How about with your kids? Can you share that with us a little bit more?
Certainly my relationship with my 3 children is absolutely essential and has been great, and what a privilege to still be in such close contact with all 3 of them, and their families and grandkids, absolutely lovely. I was watching my son doing an Ironman triathlon in Lanzarote and thought I'd love to have a go at that one day. But he's continued to be very fit and cycling. The 312 race in Mallorca that he does most years, and doesn't think his mother could do that distance, but there is a slightly shorter one I might be able to do.
How does it feel to do the same competition with your son?
Well, no, I'm doing I think a half Ironman with my grandson in February.
Wow, so it become family tradition as well.
So yes, that's my older son who's done Ironman and a lot of cycling. My middle son played a lot of badminton as a young person, played for England as a badminton. So a lot of his friends and network I've known since they were children, but played 2 Olympic Games. My daughter played a bit of badminton and actually now can do a park run faster than her mother.
So that's good. It's a good to have family activity, because that's the fun, you can do it together. And do you guys do any competition together?
Well, yes, I think I will be doing the half Ironman with my grandson.
Yeah.
My daughter and I have done park runs together. My middle son has had problems with his ankle fusion, but I think he's now able to get out more and be more active. So it'll be interesting to see whether he might be able to do a park run.
That would be nice. Do you see them often?
2 of my children do live locally, the other one rather further afield, but yes, whenever I can.
How about friendship? How do you maintain your friendship?
Yes, I have. Retained my contacts from school when I was younger. Certainly some of my social work friends, going right back, and the adoption agency and that sort of thing. The friends I've got within Silverfit, the friends in running clubs that I've been a part of, at least 3 of them that have been absolutely vital.
I always ask my Beyonder a question. If there's one thing you could do again, what would it be?
Gosh, I don't know the answer to that one.
If you don't have any, it could be. Some of them would say, actually, they don't have anything. The time and experience you have in your life, if you reflect back, is there anything you could? It could be none.
I think it is certainly about getting out in a group. No longer able to run as I did, but now I can walk, and perhaps walk a bit faster. So it's about getting out with friends.
Could you share one piece of advice for our younger generations?
I think the importance of intergenerational contact. I think it is so important to talk to your older population when you get the chance as a younger person. Learn from them a little bit, maybe, and equally the other way round. Finding out how it is now to be a child in a certain environment, and what the pressures that they're under, which are quite considerable. And as we were just talking about the ChatGPT, it's my grandkids that are going to be able to help me on that.
Want to have the opportunity to talk to different generations? Check out Beyond's website. We are a platform that focuses on connecting generations and facilitating conversations that are filled with wisdom and life experience. The link is in the show notes.
You're very curious and learning. How do you keep on top of what's going on in the world? Are you still constantly trying to learn stuff?
I am constantly trying to learn stuff, but not always succeeding, I have to say. I do read The Guardian or Observer most days, but it is staying in touch, isn't it? And perhaps also recognising that the memory isn't quite what it was when I was 30.
Another topic that I would like to ask you is a bit difficult to talk. How do you see death? Do you think about it? Is it scary? When I think about it, I do wonder, okay, where will I go? I'm not particularly religious, but I believe there's a God. So how about you? What do you think of that?
I've been a Catholic all my life, and I think, yes, I reflect on that when I go to Mass, almost most Sundays. Yes, there is a life after death, and I've got a husband who's up there somewhere.
And you're the lucky one, but one day you'll return together.
Yeah.
What do you look forward next? I know there's a half Ironman in Oman and the race across America in 2024. Could you share about those races and how can we support you?
I think the big one is Race Across America. I crewed for another team, so you have 4 of you riding relay, hour on, hour off, 2 of you, and then the other 2 do it for 6 or 8 hours.
I look it up. Race Across America is a very intensive, including 3,000 plus mile over 9 days.
So I think you also have a crew of 9 people who are driving a Winnebago where you can sleep and eat and cook, and also 2 other support vehicles, one of which follows you at night, particularly giving you light in front. So I think organising that and financing that is the key issue that you may be able to help with. There is a cost of hiring the Winnebago, of hiring the other vehicles, of the petrol, diesel, etc. So I think raising that money is vital. We've paid the deposit to go next June, but actually do still need to raise the funds for the other bits that I've just talked about.
What made you wanted to do it and what motivated you to continue this?
Well, we did it as I crewed back in 2008. We completed it as a foursome. And then last time we did it, my partner, sort of hour on, hour off, had a very nasty fall, and we were only 300 miles short of finishing, but we couldn't finish. She ended up seriously injured in intensive care units. So she's desperate to do it again and finish. So that's the main reason that I'm doing it. She'll say she's doing it for my sake. Yeah. So I'm still training quite hard, probably about 20 hours a week. So I'm jogging, walking. I'm certainly not doing quite as much swimming as my coach, Annie Emerson, constantly reminds me I should be. And cycling at the moment, obviously indoors, although as soon as I can get outdoors, I will be doing that.
Oh, because the swimming will be outdoor, right?
Yes.
Oh, wow. How do you deal with the temperature?
Well, I only like going in warm water, hence going to Oman. I have swum in the Serpentine many, many, many times, as interestingly did my grandmother. But yes, it's a bit cold at the moment.
Yeah. Do you train anything mentally to prepare yourself to go through the 9 days of our race across America?
Oh yes, we now have a group. So we met with all our crew last week, which is a great bonding exercise, and we stay in touch with them, and we'll certainly be meeting and we'll be practicing with them, so that we all know, not only following us and how they do that, but actually as you change over riders, that's quite a critical point, and you don't want to lose time by standing still. You actually, or cycling still, you've actually got to overtake as quickly as you can, but then you've also got to ensure, particularly in the dark, that your drivers also are able to continue to follow you safely.
What's the sleeping arrangement going to be like? How does it work?
So 2 of us are sleeping. I'm very fortunate. I can sleep very easily for short distances, and I think that's always been a strength when I was crewing, that I could shut off very quickly to sleep. I think I learned through Michael Mosley as well recently that you take a deep breath in and then breathe out through your mouth, and that's certainly, I've only got to do 4 or 5 of those and I'm usually asleep.
That's a good quality to have. Is there anything else that's coming up that's your biggest passion or something you want to try new again?
I don't know about new, but I would like to expand Silverfit a little more. I think we're doing very well. We've just had news of funding from the City of London, City Bridge, and I think that will make a difference, a significant difference, because it will enable us to appoint a director for Silverfit, which will enable me to do more of the PR and having fun doing podcasts, etc.
That was such a lovely interview to talk to you about your childhood, adulthood, and then your future, what you're going to do. And then one last thing that I would like to talk to you about is you have a book called IronGran, and how keeping you fit taught me that growing older doesn't mean slowing down. And I want to really ask you about that. Age is just a number, but you're a living example of it. What would you say to the audience? How did you really act on age is just a number?
I think it is important to stay a little bit more active than many people do. And I think if you can, just finding somebody that you can go for a walk with, and then perhaps increasing the walk, whether it's the distance or the speed, but also perhaps developing networks locally where you live to just get out a little bit more and stay that bit more active and socially aware.
Great. Thank you for being on our podcast today. Is there anything else you would like to share with the younger generation? And I know that you shared the advices. Talk to people. So intergeneration connection is important. Anything else you would like to share at the end?
I think it is that message of making it fun, isn't it? And
yeah.
That's a word that doesn't get used enough, I think. And I'll go for a walk along the Thames here and I'll smile at the people that I'm passing by. Usually they'll smile back.
And if they don't, what do you usually do?
Okay, I've smiled,
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie.
All the links that we mentioned in this podcast, including film interviewing Eddie's grandmother, Silverfit website, fundraising for Race Across America, and the documentary film about Eddie's life are all in the show notes.
Thank you. Before you leave, if you love this episode, please stay tuned for our next one. If you haven't done so, please follow Beyondhood in your favorite podcast listening app. Or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you found this conversation inspirational or interesting or valuable, chances are you did. Since you're still listening, would you do me a personal favor, a 6-second favor? Share it on your social, email, or tell a friend. Tell a person you know who can benefit from this conversation, who you think would be inspired by our Beyonder, who is navigating how to age with grace and motivation so that they can join and be part of our mission. You guys can discuss. When a podcast becomes a chat becomes an action. Then we're closer to create an intergenerational community through one chat at a time. Lastly, if you love this episode, please support by being a member of the podcast so that I can keep looking for new Beyonder and continue the show.
Childhood, adolescent, adulthood, and